मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म इधि वेदस्य मआणिस्थ श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेनाहुरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om. May my speech be firmly established in my mind. May the mind too be firmly established in my speech. O self-effulgent Lord, be revealed in my consciousness. May the truths of the scriptures shine forth in my life. May not what I learn from them ever forsake me. Let me live my life day and night according to their teachings. I shall speak what is appropriate. I shall speak the truth. May that protect me. May that protect the teacher. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Let us feel our true, ever blissful, divine nature in our heart. As a steadily burning candle flame. Let us concentrate on this true self of ours. This is our unchanging reality. Holding on to which everything in our body, mind, and the external world too keeps on moving. It is on the basis of this unchanging, self-luminous, eternal self that we live our day-to-day life. Let us be aware of this. This is the true nature of everything. It is same in all. Like the ocean in all waves is same. It is the source of life. It is the source of bliss. Source of true peace. Let us feel its glow. Its radiance enveloping everything. Om. Peace, peace, peace. So, dear friends, let us begin today's study with our usual opening chant. Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Shrimadattatam Bhuvi grananti te Bhurida janaha. Last Tuesday, we were concluding the discussion on the practices in spiritual life called Tantra. Tantric practices means all the different techniques which are applied to get our mind caught in name and form to be released from it. Like we use all such techniques in our day-to-day life to get things accomplished, like say a screw is too tight and is not opening. So, okay, then you use technique, like add some WD-40 to loosen it up a little bit, the dust and the rust and whatever is there, and then it is quickly opened. Many such things are used. The principle of liver is a good example, that it is you use certain techniques to accomplish things which are otherwise hard to do. So, in spiritual life, we know how hard it is to get the mind that is so much caught in the things, name and forms of this world. We all are aware of it. There is no point in just laughing at somebody else about it, because we all are in the same boat. It is not at all easy. To talk about it is easy, that let us free ourselves from the clutches of name and form. But again and again the name and form keep on directing it. In fact, we draw. There are some explanatory, so-called explanatory, but misleading in a way, drawings. That, okay, state A, you are then some figure will be shown that caught in the name and form. Then again another figure will be drawn, free from name and form. But there is, we have already put a form there to show that, you see. So, our thoughts, they move within that framework of name, form. It is, that is how we perceive, that is how we think, and all our attractions and aversions, they move within this name, form, frame. And therefore, we can see it is so difficult to get away from it. One therefore needs to use techniques. And these techniques is, okay, let the mind get, the principle of all these techniques is that let the mind get hooked on to something else which has a name and form, sure, but it will also have the capability to loosen your mind from that particular name and form. Therefore, certain tantric these practices involve, for example, certain psychedelic, like wine is described, and some psychedelic substances are involved, not as getting into that habit, but to show that if you take, say, alcohol or wine, then your sense of this reality gets obscured. You get an escape from it temporarily, and then if you dwell on it that it wasn't real, you take some LSD or something. Don't ask me, I have never taken, but then what I read about it is that this world doesn't appear to be then that real. You get a little freedom to maneuver then. It is not real. The problem is that these drugs create their own addictions. So therefore, they should not be used without a tremendous that spiritual urge, so that you will use it just as a leverage to get over that tendency and then cross over. It is like you see there the cranes, big huge cranes. So the cranes move huge loads which are difficult to move from ground to the top. So and then the load is now, after moving it to the top, you untie it from the crane. It is not to remain with the crane, it is to be untied at the top floor where it is to be installed. So, that is how the technique is used there. So, some such things are sense enjoyments, okay, that you come to the Lord's worship, God is being worshipped, come for the worship. There is going to be some nice, delicious food to be given. Now, the food is an attraction, so people go. Now, the idea is take them to God by first pulling them towards it by food. So they will come, the food will go away, but the God will take over. That is the hope. So these are some of the practices and the techniques are used. Now in Tantra, there is this sometimes what is called Vamachar Tantra. They use certain methods which for most of the spiritual aspirants will make that fellow completely addicted to only those things rather than moving away from those things and get established in God. So, Sri Ramakrishna therefore would dissuade his disciples to take up any such practice. It is Swami Vivekananda also in his rules for the order, Ramakrishna order, the organization and of which Vedanta societies are part. His rule is that none of you should practice those things in this order. So, Swami Saradananda has therefore discussed these things in brief to show that how Sri Ramakrishna practiced many of those disciplines, and he, although would not advise others to go on those lines, he certainly would maintain that a sincere aspirant can certainly benefit by those things too. The master, and this is page 562, the master would say quite often, one should listen to the teachings of the Vedas and Puranas, but the sadhanas of the Tantras should be put into practice. Almost everywhere in India one can see that the followers of Smriti scriptures practice tantric sadhana in some form or other. Even the Pandits of Nyaya and Vedanta are tantrics in practice. Within Vaishnava communities it can be seen that some great teachers of the Bhagavata and devotional scriptures practice the esoteric sadhanas of the Karta Bhaja and other sects, the tantric sects. You can see even Shankaracharya, the great Vedantist, he practiced tantric disciplines, and he has some of his literature devoted to tantras. So I saw some of the great Vedantics, these monks who practice the disciplines in Tantra, the practical disciplines that they would take up, they all are tantric disciplines. One great Swami that I knew, he taught me some Upanishads, although I didn't stay with him for too long, but I have tremendous respect for him, and I learned a lot by observing his life. So he was in practice a tantrika, a Kashmiri Shaivism tantra. His guru was a great authority in that, so he used that. So everybody uses. There are the smritis. These are also some type of tantras. They give you means of worship and putting your daily life into some discipline which gradually will make you come out of it. So these are all commonly applied things without the name Tantra. So here we see that Pandit Vaishnavacharan belonged to the Karta Bhaja group. He was closely connected with the sect's Kachi Bagan center, which was located a few miles north of Kolkata. Many men and women of this sect lived there and practiced sadhana under his guidance. Vaishnav Charan took the master there a few times. We heard that some women of that center observed the master and found him always unperturbed. When they saw that his love for God had put him into ecstasy, they attempted to test the master to determine whether he had completely conquered lust. They then paid him their respect and declared him to be the Atut Sahaj. We had seen this word Sahaj. Means spontaneously established in God. Sahaj means something that you do spontaneously without any deliberate effort. Like if taking for granted that your lungs are fine, and then your breathing happens spontaneously. You don't have to do any special effort to breathe. It is, it is. Once I had gone for getting some x-rays, and then the technician or doctor there told me to lie down, and then every now and then she would say, putting that machine that please breathe for me, breathe for me. That is the language. Then I did, and later I said, well, I would be anyway breathing for myself. Why should I be breathing for you? It is that it is, but she was into that habit of saying for me. So please breathe in for me. So you breathe in, but that happens spontaneously, as if she had she told me don't breathe. Would I be able to stay that long without breathing? It is you breathe without your being aware of it. So that is the sahaj, spontaneous. Now, for most of us, to think of God is an effort. It doesn't happen spontaneously. To do meditation, therefore, we have to make separate some efforts, some arrangements. But Sri Ramakrishna's state of mind was spontaneously established in God, in that absolute, limitless, time and spaceless self-awareness of the divine Brahman, or you may say God. It is, that was his spontaneous state. He used to say, for you people I have to bring my mind down today, that there are these people are seeing this name and form. So that was his awareness. So Atut Sahaj, Atut means unbreakable. That spontaneous God's awareness was uh, not going to get altered or changed at all. So, that is the meaning of atut, unbreakable, a man of unbroken chastity and natural awareness of God. It was all, it was at Vaishnavacharan's request that the childlike master visited that place. He was completely unaware that those women would test him in that manner. After this, he never visited that place again. As he observed the Master's wonderful strength of character and purity and witnessed him in Bhava Samadhi, Vaishnav Charan's love for and faith in him increased day by day. Ultimately, he did not hesitate to declare publicly that the Master was an incarnation of God. He declared it right in that meeting, but afterwards he unhesitatingly declared it in public. So, shortly after Vaishnav Charan began visiting the Master, Pandit Gauri of Indesh came to Dakshineshwar. Pandit Gauri was a distinguished tantric aspirant. The Master told us an interesting incident that took place when Gauri entered the Dakshineshwar Kali temple. The Master said that Gauri had an occult power that he had developed by means of his austerities. When he was invited to a scriptural debate, while entering a house or meeting place, he would loudly recite the following following a few times. Ha re 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 niralambo lambo darajananikam yami sharanam. Oh, I am helpless, niralambo. I have no other help. I am without any help. To whom shall I go? Lambodara Janane. So there is a kind of pun there, Niralambo Lambodara. So, Niralambo Lambodara Janani Kam Yami Sharanam. To whom, in whom shall I take refuge? So he would say loudly. The Master said that people, when heard that thunderous, heroic voice exclaiming, Ha re re re, and the line from Shankara's hymn on the Divine Mother, their hearts shook with an indescribable fear. This served two purposes. First, that sound would fully awaken the power within Gauri. Second, he would frighten and overwhelm his opponents with it and rob them of their strength. Gauri would then menacingly slap his left arm with the palm of his right hand, like the Indian wrestlers do as they enter the debating hall. So, as if it is a wrestling bout. So, he would do that. It is his legs folded beneath him, his knees in front, like the courtiers in the court of a Muslim king. Thus would he challenge his opponents. Master said that it was then impossible for anyone to defeat him. But at that time, the Master did not know about Gauri's occult power. As soon as Gauri entered the Dakshineshwar Kali temple and roared, Ha re re re, a few times, immediately someone within the Master made him shout those syllables louder than Gauri. See the words here. Sri Ramakrishna did not deliberately chant this. So, to show that it is said someone within Sri Ramakrishna, it is automatically, spontaneously, it is made him shout those syllables louder than Gauri. Amazed, Gauri yelled louder than the master had. Excited, the master again outroared Gauri. Ha re re re. With a smile, the master told us later that the noise of the two of them made sounded like a whole band of robbers charging to the attack. When the temple guards heard the ruckus, they ran to the spot armed with sticks and clubs. All were panic stricken. When Gauri could not utter those words louder than the master, he became silent and dejectedly entered the Kali temple. When people realized that master and the visiting Pandit had been making that loud noise, they laughed and returned to their places. Master said the mother then made me know that Gauri used his occult power to take away others' strength and remain invincible. So he could never be defeated in these debates on scriptures and other esoteric those practices. He would be always coming out victorious because of this power. There is something one must note here, that it is not always that you win because your side is true, or even because you have better logical skills. It is at times when you are overwhelmed by some other things, even though you know many things, you can't utter a word because of certain dejected state of your mind. And once that sets in, it makes you more dejected. So your behavior becomes then kind of erratic, depressed, and then you certainly are not in a winning position. So uh, it is said that many times Shankaracharya's very appearance would make the others who would like to refute him become silent. They couldn't utter word. It is because their power gets subdued. I had experienced these things, that I used to sometimes have many pressing questions, and not only sometimes questions, but many points that I want to uh, sort out with my teacher, a difference of opinion and all that. So, if I would go in his presence, uh, well, I would not be able to utter any of those things. It is that overwhelming presence would remove those things. My guru in Belur Math, when I was in training center, sometimes I would think of going to him, and when I sought appointment, I was graciously granted. Yes, you come this evening and ask whatever you want to ask Swami. I kind of prepared things to ask, and as I went there to ask him, nothing was coming out of the mouth. Everything was kind of this very hallowed presence had subdued all my thoughts and the talking power. It was all gone. So he lovingly asked me endearingly, so what is, how things are happening with you? Are you doing sadhana? Okay, okay, do it properly. And then, so what I thought, I had time of about 20 minutes. and I thought I will be talking for 30 minutes also. It all was over in, yeah, you are right, max 5 minutes. So, it is because of this power of somebody's presence subdues others. And then when Gauri Pandit would recite that, his power of personality, his Sanskrit, sometimes the Vedantic word for that is ojas. His ojas will become heightened, and then the others will lose all the strength. Sometimes it is said that how the tiger likes to eat monkeys. It is, but then the monkeys climb on the trees, and the tiger has no capability of climbing and chasing them there. So what the tiger does is lets out a very loud roar. And just listening to some such big roar, the monkeys, because they would become so nervous that they would fall from the tree to the ground. So, because of nervousness. So this happens. It is sometimes in my school days, one teacher, he was a little fun-loving and would like to correct the students, especially those who are not doing their homework properly or a bit mischievous. He would just look at them. So, did you finish your homework today? Eh? And why? He would loudly say, and why? What do you think you come here for? And just by after saying, he would say, and just because I am saying these things to you, why are you weeping? What makes you cry? And that would really make that fellow cry, you see. It is. So, the other strengths to have a debate or argument, all that would be gone. So, this was the great power that Gauri had achieved due to his sadhana, spiritual practice. And so he was not hesitating to use it also. The Divine Mother, what then happened was that the master said, the mother then made me know that Gauri used this occult power to take away others' strength and remain invincible. When that power was defeated by this place, pointing to himself, Sri Ramakrishna pointing to himself, he lost it. The Divine Mother drew his power into here, pointing to himself for his good. In fact, every day, Gauri was increasingly charmed by the Master's spirituality and ultimately completely surrendered to him. This is a very important point to just remember here, that this illiterate, thought to be insane Brahmin, poor man, was just in company of such a person, this great scholar, somebody who had the aura of invincibility and so much fame. He would get so charmed, would not do anything. It is so. Pandit Gauri was an outstanding tantric aspirant. The master told us that every year during Durga Puja, Gauri would arrange everything needed for the worship and then adorn his wife with a new cloth and ornaments, place her on a painted wooden altar, and worship her devoutly for 3 days as the Divine Mother. According to the Tantra, all female forms are the veritable forms of Divine Mother, and her means Divine Mother's power of sustaining and delighting are manifested in them in great degree. So men should worship all women with purity of heart, and that is why Gauri would worship his wife. The relationship, normal relationship between a wife and husband, uh, is it disallows the thought of a divinity there. It is a human being, an object of enjoyment, or a partner in enjoyment, and so forth. A partner in living in this world, that becomes the awareness that yes, we have fun together. You don't have the awareness of uh, being the divine there. So a special attempt is made to worship the divine, that wife, as goddess. This was not same as Sri Ramakrishna worshipping Holy Mother. That was just an expression of the ever-present awareness of Sri Ramakrishna about Holy Mother. It is suddenly one day, as that narration is very inspiring narration about how Sri Ramakrishna would look at her, that young girl's Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi, uh, at at night, just sitting and massaging Sri Ramakrishna's feet, asked, "How do you look upon me? How do you look upon me?" Without a second's delay, Sri Ramakrishna said that the same one who is worshipped as the Mother Kali in the temple, and the one who has given birth to this body, uh, that same one is now massaging my feet. His awareness about Holy Mother was always like that. And so his doing Shodashi Puja had a little different purpose. We shall discuss it maybe some other time when the topic comes. But Gauri Pandit, it is to get that awareness, he would do this worship during Durga Puja, that here is the Mother Durga. So, when man forgets that the Divine Mother is hidden in all women and lustfully looks at the female body as an object of enjoyment, he insults the Divine Mother and consequently does harm to himself. In the Chandi, that is 700 verses on Divine Mother, while practicing the Divine Mother, while praising the Divine Mother, the gods also say this: O Goddess, you are the embodiment of knowledge and are manifest in all higher and lower forms of conceptual knowledge. You are embodiment in every woman in the world, O Mother. You alone are present everywhere in this universe, pervading everything. You are incomparable and beyond expression. Who can describe your infinite glories by singing hymns? Many of us in India recite this hymn daily, but alas, how many of us, even for a moment, strive to see a woman's body as the Divine Mother herself, and by thus paying proper respect to her, become blessed with the experience of heartfelt pure bliss. How men view a woman, a special manifestation of the Divine Mother, with an impure mind and sinful eyes, insulting her 100 times a day. So, this is how it. This actually is just describing Gauri Pandit's these practices. And what happens with that is he receives the blessings of the Divine Mother in terms of this his many powers and spiritual advancement. The blessings come like that. The master told us of another of Pandit Gauri's amazing abilities. Eminent tantric aspirants generally perform a fire sacrifice every day at the end of the Divine Mother's worship. Gauri also used to perform this on many occasions, if not daily. But his method of Homa fire was unconventional. One cannot imagine, how he was able to do it. They, people, usually put clay or sand on the ground and make an altar. They then set wood on it, kindle the fire, and offer sacrifice. But Gauri's method was different. He would stretch out his left arm in the air and pile one mound, about 82 pounds of wood upon it. Then with his right hand he would light the wood and pour oblations into the fire. It's unbelievable. It is, there are many things which are true but of not common occurrence. Then we cannot believe them, but they are true. It is just because we don't see it, it appears to be can't be true. Nobody can do like that. The common some things, that somebody eating so many snakes. Just they show in the some TV funny things that a man was eating. It was this man that had all these snakes in front and was eating them. Now, I was thinking it is impossible. It is just photoshopping. No, that was not just photoshopping. It was actual something that people can do. So, it is not that just because we don't know, we can't believe. Not so. It is, there are many things people do that since we do not see it commonly, we say, no, it cannot happen. It is so. This was Gauri's one of the powers. A fire sacrifice takes at least an hour. It seems impossible that a man could hold 82 pounds of his on his extended arm for such a long time without support. In addition, how could he keep his mind calm, ignoring that terrible heat on his bare arm, and properly make his offerings with devotion? Many of us heard this story from Master but had trouble believing it. Observing our doubt, the Master said, "Look, I have seen him do this with my own eyes." It is Sri Ramakrishna is saying, I have seen him doing it with my own eyes. Sri Ramakrishna, who had unparalleled devotion to truth, so much established in truth. He is uttering these words. So must be true. He said that it was one of his occult powers. So he could do that. A few days after Gauri arrived in Dakshineshwar, Mathur convened a meeting with Vaishnavacharan and some scholarly aspirants. The purpose of this meeting was to debate with Gauri and determine the master's spiritual condition through the scriptural testimony as they had done before. The meeting was convened that morning in the Nat Mandir facing the Kali temple. Nat Mandir is a hall, loosely means it is not joined to the temple, but it is in front of the temple, and then many musical programs or the such chanting of the name or meditation people do sitting there. So there this meeting was organized. Uh, because Vaishnavacharan was late in arriving from Calcutta, the master proceeded with Gauri to the meeting place. Before entering the Nat Mandir, the master first went inside the shrine of the Divine Mother Kali, bowed down and devoutly worshipped her feet. When he came out of the temple, he was staggering in ecstasy. At that very moment, Vaishnavacharan arrived and bowed down at his feet. When he saw Vaishnavacharan, the master became overwhelmed with love and went into samadhi. In that state, he sat on Vaishnavacharan's shoulders. Vaishnavacharan considered himself blessed. Impelled by joy, he spontaneously composed a hymn in Sanskrit that glorified the master. Mathur and others stood motionless around them, observing intently and with heartfelt devotion the master's gracious and luminous form in samadhi, and listening to Vaishnavacharan's joyous and melodious hymn. Just try to bring this scene, Let us try to, on the our mind's eye. Let us bring this in front of these eyes of mine. How that would look. Sri Ramakrishna's face shining because of this samadhi, just outpouring of that tremendous grandeur and radiance, and sitting on Vaishnavacharan's shoulders, and Vaishnavacharan composing this hymn in Sanskrit spontaneously. After a while, the master descended from samadhi, and everyone slowly proceeded to the meeting place and sat down. So Gauri saw all this. The conference began. At once Gauri said, pointing to the master, "Since he has bestowed such grace upon Vaishnavacharan, I shall not debate with him today. If I do, I am sure to be defeated because he is endowed with divine power." It is not a level ground to have a match. He is already more luminous today. He has been receiving this grace today. So I am sure to be defeated if I go into that venture. So today, no, not possible today. So then he said, moreover, I find that Vaishnavacharan belongs to my school of thought, so his opinion about the master must be the same as mine. In this case, debate is unnecessary. The meeting ended after a little conversation on other scriptural topics. The presence of Bhairavi Brahmani is not mentioned in this meeting. Earlier it was mentioned. That does not mean Bhairavi was not there, but it is not mentioned here. Gauri did not refrain from debate that day because he was intimidated by Vaishnavacharan's erudition. For a few days he had observed the master's demeanor, conduct, behavior, and other signs, and had come to the deep realization that the master was not an ordinary man but a great soul. This insight came to him by virtue of the austerities he had undergone. A few days later, the master asked Gauri a question to test his understanding. Hello, Vaishnavacharan called this, pointing to himself, an avatar. How can it be? Tell me what you think about it. This is the person here, the word austerity is to be understood correctly. Austerity, the Sanskrit word is tapas or tapasya, which means purification. In Vedanta, whenever you have this word austerity, it does not mean torturing the body at all. Torturing the body and all that, that may look like austerity. But the standard of austerity is how much the dross of the worldly attachment has been removed, so that the vision is clear now. That is why with tapas you see the truth. So Gauri, having performed that, the mind and the sight was so clear, so he could realize this. Gauri gravely replied, Does Vaishnavacharan call you an avatara? I consider that an understatement. I believe that you are he, by the fraction of whose power the avataras come forth to this world in every age and accomplish their mission. The master smiled and said, Ah, so you outbid him. What do you find in me that leads you to entertain this idea? Just to see that it is not an emotionally made statement, just out of certain emotional effervescence, people make sometimes funny statements. Like I could quote that very often, but listening to a very good spiritual discourse, then that man, while leaving, said, Oh, it was so good. I am a completely changed man now. Now it is just emotion. Not that he was insincere, but it is an emotional expression because completely changed. That changed wouldn't last long enough even to go up to the street from here. So, therefore, that is just the emotional aspect. So, Sri Ramakrishna said, Come on, tell me, what made you think like this? So, Gauri replied, I am saying this based on my deep personal experience and the testimony of the scriptures. I am ready to prove my contention to anyone who challenges me in this matter. Same statement. Don't you think, don't you see that you had heard this before from the mouth of Brahmani, Bhairavi? So same statement now you hear from this another great, highly accomplished and well recognized scholar. That okay, if somebody has a problem in accepting this, I can prove it on the basis of scriptures. So, well, master replied to him, well, it is you who say so. The master said like a boy, but I know nothing about it. Gauri said, this is as it should be. The scriptures agree on this point. Because you don't know yourself, how can others know you? Only one whom you have graciously allowed to know you can do so. It is very difficult to appreciate, understand incarnation of God. Only when the incarnation allows, then others can understand. Otherwise, not. They feel that this is man. Just in front of us is a man. The mother Yashoda, the foster mother of Krishna, would think that no, this is a little child. I have to take care of this little boy, and he has become so naughty and so forth. So that is how they don't see it. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tadumashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwara. This is the verse in Bhagavad Gita, which means that people, they insult me, they do not obey me because they think I am a man. They get deluded because I have taken the human body and doing work from it. So they refuse to acknowledge my divinity. So this is how we don't recognize the God, even when that is in front of us as human being. We see it as human being. That's it. So we shall continue the discussion next Tuesday. So meditate on this for a few seconds, and in case if you have questions, feel free to ask. Yes, please.
Swamiji, there is one question here from Mukta.
Mukta?
Yeah.
Okay.
Swamiji mentioned that a spouse should not be seen as an object of worship because of the idea of fun associated with it. In this case, it was about a woman as an object of worship. However, it is common in Indian tradition that a husband is seen as an object of worship. Why is there a difference between the attitude of a husband versus that of a wife? Shouldn't it be reciprocal?
They are reciprocal as far as the scriptures go. Therefore, in the wedding ceremony also that is there, that the wife is to be seen as Lakshmi, and the husband as the groom as Narayana. So that both would be able to see the divine in each other. Now, the practices depend. It is not that it is only unidirectional. Even that it is because of the relationship of a particular type, it is very difficult. Neither the wives can see anything close to God in husband, nor the husband see anything similar. It is because what happens is, when the subject object enjoyment happens, automatically that which you feel as you take enjoyment from gets reduced to an object. and then falls down in your eyes. So that is why this treatment like that it is even it is like this, whatever one goes to enjoy comes to the level of an object, whether man or a woman, it is from both sides. And now there is a psychological reason. I don't want to discuss that in details about a man and woman. They, although both have that subject object awareness, a man's awareness is predominantly subjective. I am the subject. Whereas a woman's awareness is that of I am an object. And that is why you will find it is. I don't want to open a can of worms right here today, but that is why you see that the women want to decorate themselves much more than men want to do so. It is all the garment industry mainly runs on the support of females. It is because they want to make themselves attractive like an object, so that others will get attracted. That is why women always feel that it is they are being deprived of something that they should get. It is the reason is this, that more preponderance or more dominance of the idea that I am an object. So it is something that they should work on, and then they will be able to see that the divine flash in themselves as well as in their husband. It is with man, the problem is different. The man has terrible ego. Because of the ego, the subject, the subject dominated awareness. I am as the master, and this is the object. That ego becomes a terrible issue with man, and therefore gets defeated by this ego awareness. And the ego is the cause of the defeat of a male. And the object awareness, or it gets translated into possessive awareness, becomes the cause of failure or defeat for a woman. This is a subject in deeper psychology. I don't want to get into it now. So, but good question. Any other question?
Yeah, there's one from Jyoti Champanarkar. Is the hymn, Swamiji, is the hymn that was recited spontaneously by Vaishnavacharan well known?
Oh no, that I have never found that hymn. What hymn was composed? There is no mention in this Leela Prasanga book on about it, and I have not read it. And when I had asked some other Swamis also, they said no, it's not available. It was not recorded, and so Swami Saradananda also didn't give it. Yeah, we don't know that hymn. Oh yes. Ah, good question, Eze. His question is that it is mentioned, although this is not the topic that we discussed today, but his question is about Sri Ramakrishna's that if somebody is seeing Sri Ramakrishna at the time of death, then that person is liberated. What happens to the ego of that person? If one is liberated, means there is no ego. The ego gets annihilated. That person is gone now. That is liberation. It is not that that person was earlier like you think of a prison, that somebody is in the prison, and then the sentence is now exhausted, finished, so that person is now released. So the same person in prison and this same person now free out of the prison. But this is not the liberation, that is the liberation of knowledge, that I itself is the prison. Do you see this? This ego is the prison that one is caught in. That is gone. Now, that alone remains beyond speech, beyond mind, beyond time and space, the existence itself, bliss itself, that alone remains. That is why the ego is the obstacle. By seeing Sri Ramakrishna at the time of death, not that one has to wait till death. You can see it before that also. As you see it, then you see that and I same, that is seeing it. And then your ego is gone, that I is gone. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna, one Swami gave a humorous remark which I sometimes tell, I like that it is, if you go to because if your eyes are itching or something, you go to an eye specialist, that is EYE, eye specialist. Then that eye specialist gives you eye drop. Put the eye drop. Sri Ramakrishna is that eye specialist. Capital eye specialist. So this what Sri Ramakrishna, he doesn't give you eye drop, but drop eye. It is, the eye is dropped. He gives you the advice, drop eye. So that is how it works. Okay then. So let us conclude with our closing prayers. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.